All right, time for Media Watch, and James Creedon is with us in the studio. It's good to see you, James, as always. Let's start with the latest buzz around US President-elect Donald Trump. He's been on Twitter again, hasn't he, saying you can stop all that reporting about disarray and chaos as he seeks to name his team. But there seems to be something going on, doesn't there?
He's certainly got the hands of his Twitter, the keys to the Twitter account back, which were infamously, supposedly, allegedly taken away from him just prior to the election campaign or the actual election by his team. He has been known to tweet somewhat erratically.
In any case,
the New York Times, referring to firings and discord during his as he attempts to put together the transition team, and they spoke about how a number of people have been fired. Representative Mike Rogers of Michigan, Matthew Friedman, a lobbyist, then most famously Governor Chris Christie. So a slew of firings, and apparently improvised, what the New York Times referred to as improvised phone call, improvising the most basic traditions of assuming power. In other words, speaking to heads of state without having been briefed by the State Department in advance. So a lot of criticism comes from the New York Times.
Because all of the staff at the White House must be named by the Trump administration.
3,800 people. And according to New York Magazine, he wasn't actually aware of the extent of what he would have to do in terms of naming different people to different positions.
Only the gardeners and the cleaners stay, right, at the White House?
I wasn't aware it was that sweeping, but maybe even they could go too. But in the New York Magazine, for example, if I can locate that particular article, they were saying that really he just didn't seem to be aware of the extent of his responsibilities in the period after the election and prior to inauguration. So the situation has devolved into an absolute knife fight in this transition team. Now, in any case, Donald Trump shot back at these criticisms on Twitter. He said the failing New York Times story is so totally wrong on the transition. It is going so smoothly. And I've spoken to many foreign leaders. He went on to say it's a very organised process. And I am the only one who knows who the finalists are. Now, this gave way to a certain amount of criticism and on social media in the way he referred to finalists. You'd think he was still the judge of the Apprentice.
Right.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it says.
He's had a lot of people who've been fired. We just heard that from the New York Times piece. So he's been firing people, obviously, and now he's talking about finalists. But this is not a reality TV show. And another tweet here refers to his use of the expression "the finalists" because our country puts reality show stars in charge of nuclear arsenal. So it has generated another amount of discussion about the way in which he's managing this transition team, what that can tell us about whether or not he has changed his style and his temperament post-election and as he heads into holding the reins of power. And also just quite simply, for example, that's an irrelevant tweet, sorry. Quite simply, he said during a 60 Minutes interview last Sunday that he would be tweeting a lot less once he gets into the White House, and that he would be much more restrained in that regard. Well, certainly he's not affecting that particular transition or change just yet.
Alone, can he? The old Twitter. No. All right, let's turn our attentions to what's going on here in France. Emmanuel Macron, of course, launched his candidacy for the presidency today. Elections now just a few months away.
That's right. So Emmanuel Macron, he was the budget minister. This is a bit of a stab in the back to the president, to President François Hollande, or at least that's how it's being perceived by many in the Socialist Party, because this could really eat into his vote for re-election, if indeed he is the candidate on the political left to be re-elected. So this is very bad news for the Socialist Party, which is already not doing so well in the polls. Marine Le Pen, she opened her campaign headquarters today on the same street as the Élysée Palace, Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré, which allows their communications people to say, oh, it'll make the move so much easier come May because we're just moving down the street. They also unveiled a new logo for her presidential campaign, and you can see it's a blue rose. A lot of people talking about the symbolism of that. I'll get to that in a sec. Saying that the rose is usually associated with the political left, the Socialist Party. The colour blue is usually associated with the political right. So this is her attempting to muddy the waters and present herself, if you like, as a third.
Which is exactly
option.
What Macron's trying to do as well, isn't he? Saying he's above clan politics is how he described it.
Indeed.
So moving past the left and the right. Interesting times.
And in the midst of all that, you have how Marine Le Pen has has been responding to the US election. This, for example, is a triptych of photos, of paintings rather, in Moscow showing...
Those are very flattering portraits, I have to say.
They are quite, actually. I think a bit of airbrushing going on. And Marine Le Pen also said world peace would gain from a Trump-Putin-Le Pen trio. So we're hearing a lot of this. That's vis-a-vis the Rose. And a lot of speculation too then just simply about how, let's take France out of it for now, even though that will obviously affect things, the outcome of the French election, but just quite simply Trump's election and how it will affect just Western alliances generally. This is an article by Carl Bildt, the former Swedish Prime Minister, saying it's really the end of the West as we know it. We're going to see, Trump and Putin. That's a reference to the art of the deal.
Because they've already said nice things about each other, haven't they?
That's right. So a lot of speculation as to how this will change relations in the West. So I'll just give you a quick...
And the Syrian president jumping in today as well, saying he can see himself working with Donald Trump. That's
right. So it could basically Gideon Rachman, writing normally for the Financial Times, he said the US will end what he speculates that it's going to end up being with the US ending its opposition to Russia's annexation of Crimea. There will be an agreement on Bashar al-Assad staying on board in Syria. Mm-hmm. There will be a lowering of the tones, I suppose, vis-a-vis the Baltic states. Russian pressure might be lowered in Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. So in some ways this could be a good thing, but I suppose the potential pitfalls are also
alliances
massive.
Are shifting, aren't they?
That's
Very
right.
quickly, right before our eyes. James, thank you very much
Thanks
indeed. James Creedon there.